becomes of children who are sexually abused when they become young adults or even teenagers? And somebody who knows is Dr. Barbara Greenberg, and she's a clinical psychologist and author of the book Teenage as a Second Language, which I think parents actually would like to get, because please translate what my teenager is saying. But this is really very serious in terms of nobody really kind of charts a lot of what happens to these young people when they're abused as children and what happens to them generally. Can you give us a general answer about what happens to them?
Yes, I would love to. What happens when they're small is that they're very confused about what's going on, because they're often abused literally at the hands of people that they trust. It's really a myth that they are abused by strangers. It's almost always people that they are entrusted to. People who are coaches, uncles, parents, teachers.
Right.
So the kids are very confused when they're little because they are being abused by people who they also love. What starts to happen, though, when they're teenagers and they start to talk out loud about sexuality and they start to understand sexuality, is they realize that something very wrong happened to them. So it's at that point that they start to show symptoms of depression, anxiety. They start to get involved in substance abuse, and they start having trouble with intimate relationships.
Does it always happen, or do some actually come through this unscathed or relatively unscathed?
It's a very interesting question, because the ones who come through best are the ones who talk to their parents about it and who are actually believed by their parents. A very interesting fact, Lauren, is that children need to tell 7 adults before 1 adult will believe them. And there's one school of thought that what's even worse than being abused is not being believed by a parent. So many of them come through very well if they're believed by their parents and if they get the appropriate treatment.
One of the theories is that abusers become abusers. Is that true?
It's actually not true, and I'm really glad to be here and to be able to say that the majority of kids, males and females, who are sexually abused do not become abusers. However, the reverse is true. People who do sexually abused are likely to have a history of sexual abuse. But sexual abuse alone is not a good predictor of becoming a sexual abuser. It's a much more complicated recipe.
Does it matter if the person actually, the abused child, actually knew the abuser as opposed to maybe a stranger kind of sexual harassment?
It's harder.
Sexual abuse?
Yeah, it's an excellent question. It's harder if it's somebody that they know, because the feelings are much more complicated. Because if it's somebody that you both love and who harms you, as we all know, that's much more difficult to deal with.
Is there a typical age where kids are actually abused? One of the things I once read was that girls around the sort of pre-teen age, the tweens, I guess 10, 11, are
That's right.
more likely to be abused than perhaps an older girl or a younger girl.
That's right, because they're pre-puberty and they have less of a voice to speak out about it. And without the intention of blaming the victim, these girls don't have much of a voice, and they are really good victims for their prey. Abusers tend to pick out kids who are less likely to speak about it.
Interesting, interesting. I want to thank you very much, Dr. Barbara Greenberg. She's a clinical psychologist, and a book, probably a good book to get, would be her really great book on teenage as a second language. I find that's probably good for all people of all ages.
Yes, thank you.